I thank Mrs. Salma Al-Qasimi. You may now withdraw. I now invite Mrs. Erika Vásquez to take a seat at the petitioner's table. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not meet here today to discuss the roles of the Frente Polisario or the Algerian government in supporting a political resistance movement, or the state of the refugee camps in Tindouf. What we are here to discuss and must keep in mind is the legal right of the Sahrawi people to vote in a referendum to decide the fate of their territories and their own legal status as citizens, after ridding themselves of Spanish colonialism, only to be replaced by Moroccan settler colonialism. I entered the occupied territories of Western Sahara in the summer of 2014 to research the state of the military occupation and gather first-hand accounts of what life is like under occupation from Sahrawis themselves. In the 6 weeks I spent living in Laayoune, I witnessed checkpoints set up between city centers and beaches to keep track of the movement of Sahrawis, the highly militarized security along the main streets of the city, and the inexplicable levels of violence used to prevent the freedom of political expression and disperse peaceful demonstrations in the streets. The Moroccan government and its representatives claim that Western Sahara is part and parcel of their greater state, that Western Sahara is 100% Moroccan, and that all of its residents are treated with the same dignity and respect. Allow me to speak of the reality on the ground. On June 21st, 2014, there was an organized demonstration on Smara Street. It was to commemorate the Sahrawi lives lost while unlawfully imprisoned during the war of the 1980s. From the early morning to the late hours of the night, riot police lined the entirety of the street and prevented Sahrawis from congregating in large groups in public. Those several dozens of Sahrawis that managed to reach the protest site were met by completely unprovoked violent aggression. Women were dragged across the streets by their melkhafas and drawn into oncoming traffic. Men were punched in the face and tossed to the ground and immediately surrounded by police officers. And children screamed from the sidewalks for their parents' safety and were shoved aside by police forces. I could hardly imagine seeing the same scene in Morocco proper, and so it was clear that Western Sahara is not policed nor protected in the same way as the state. Following the demonstration, I interviewed several participants. They showed me their wounds and the scars of wounds sustained from other peaceful protests that were met with immeasurable violence. It reminded me of survivors of the war and those who were unlawfully detained for several years, accused of aiding the resistance movement and supplying the Frente Polisario with intelligence. They showed me the wounds and scars sustained from beatings and torture positions at the hands of the Moroccan government. Deep, large, and painful scars along shin bones, knees, shoulder blades, hands, and collarbones that affect the way they are able to move and live their lives with dignity. Even now, Mohammed Dadesh's wounds from his 24 years imprisoned are burned into my memory. There has been no progress made in this conflict, not towards self-determination, not towards holding a referendum, and not towards securing the lives of Sahrawis, and not towards enhancing the state of human rights. Sahrawi youth and children today are terrified of going to school and expressing their opinions. They live in fear along with the rest of the majority of the Sahrawi society in the occupied territories. And this is largely due to the lack of political will in the international community to fully realize UN Resolution 1514 and rid this world of colonialism in all of its forms. I call on everyone in this room today to act on behalf of humanity, of human rights, and of what is plainly the right thing to do. Thank you.
I thank Mrs. Erika Vásquez for the information she has furnished to the committee. Does any member wish to put a question to Mrs. Vásquez? I thank Mrs. Erika Vásquez. You may now withdraw. I invite now